Mike Johnson is not happy with some of The View co-hosts.
The co-hosts were discussing the White House's push for a baby boom. Trump said that giving women who have babies $5,000 bonuses would be a good idea to encourage larger families.
Here's The View reacting.
They're saying that the U.S. birth rate is declining. However, in 2024, there was a 1% increase in U.S. births. But that increase was with Hispanic mothers and Asian mothers. So they don't seem to be concerned about that increase. They seem to be more concerned about a decrease in other populations.
Say it.
No, I think I said enough.
It's not based on that.
And so, well, it's just based on.
Speaker Johnson had this to say in response on Fox News.
Absolutely absurd. The View is an absurd program. Yours, on the other hand, Will, is fantastic. You're doing a great show, and I'm so honored to be with you. Look, that's no surprise what The View is doing there. Every creative idea that the president and this White House come up with, they pan immediately, no matter what merit it may have. We are the Republican Party. We're the pro-family party. We always have been. We take great pride in that.
So, Amber, I think we might actually find more common ground here than you might expect. It is often my role to defend the ladies of The View, which I'm often happy to do, and I like Whoopie Goldberg. I find this one harder to defend, but tell me what you make of this first, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I think it's no secret that the demographic problem in the United States in terms of birth rates declining is a problem. Having a population made up of people who are not born here or whose parents were not born here can lead to a lot of social disunity, and it's simply not sustainable to expect that the American population should only be kept up through immigration. And Trump trying to address this issue, I think, is a really worthy goal. Now, I will criticize a little bit the proposal of the $5,000 for women who have children for a couple of reasons. First of all, this would basically cover the hospital stay for the birth and not a whole lot more. So if you're going to incentivize women to have children through some kind of monetary bonus, this probably isn't quite enough money. And that's not saying that $5,000 is not a lot of money, but when you look at it in the broader context of how much it actually costs to raise a child, this is probably not going to flip the switch on women who are currently not deciding to have children, and then they're going to see this and apparently decide to have children. I don't think that's the salve that he thinks it's going to be. And I would also say that the reason that women are not having children at as high of rates as they have been previously is probably more of a cultural and social issue than it is a financial issue. Now, to be fair, I do think it's the case that there are a lot of two-income earner households now, way more than there have been in previous decades, which turns a lot of people off from having kids because they want to have the opportunity of having one of the parents stay home with the child. And if you're both having to work in order to support your mortgage payments, your bills, all of that, then the $5,000, again, is not going to automatically change that paradigm. It would require a much broader economic revolution in order to get back to more single income earner households. And then finally, my last point before I let you take this on, Niall, is that we actually see that birth rates are lower with higher income groups, and the lowest income groups are actually having the most babies. So again, this clearly is not a financial issue. I think this needs to be some kind of broader policy proposal, including investigating the actual causes of why women are not having children in order for this to be effective.
So having predicted that we were going to agree, I now find that we have several points on which we disagree here.
Oh no, so close.
So close, exactly. Because the thing about this is, obviously we saw the hosts of The View there express their outrage about this. And one of my problems with the way Trump is often discussed is that I do think there is a basket of things that are outrageous that he proposes. And I also think that sometimes there are things that he proposes that are greeted as outrageous by liberal-leaning people that would in fact be welcomed if someone else proposed them. And so when he proposes the $5,000 baby bonus, I think that's an excellent idea. The birth rate is falling, as you rightly noted. It's been falling for at least 15 years. I think that increasing that birth rate would be beneficial for the country. But more to the point, I think $5,000, though it is not the world, is a significant amount of money, particularly to people with lower incomes. And so my argument would be, if Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or Barack Obama had come out and said, Look, there are a lot of people who are in difficult circumstances in this country, particularly when they become new mothers. We're going to give them $5,000. That would be hailed, rightly in my view, as a good Liberal policy to soften the financial difficulties that many young mothers experience. And so I'd be all in favour of. There was, if you'll permit me, one British parallel. About 20 years ago in Britain, a Labour government introduced a thing where the government, as a savings measure, would give parents, low-income parents, £500 when a baby was born and £500 when it turned 7, and it would be kept in a tax-free account to encourage parents to save on behalf of their child. The thing matured when the child turned 18. The whole point of that was to try to at least give babies and children from lower income backgrounds some kind of seed money of the kind that is common in much more affluent families. An excellent, liberal, progressive idea. And so $5,000 in this case, I would be very firmly in favour of.
Yeah, I mean, I take all of your points well. The only issue that I would take is with the particularly helping low-income families is that they're already having children at higher rates than higher-income families. So, of course, we should seek to help those people. But I don't think this is necessarily a solve for the birth rate problem specifically, so much as it is helping those parents save or buy a house or et cetera, which are all obviously great incentives for a policy. But I think, again, getting back to the point of this needing to be a broader initiative, one of the other things that Trump has talked about is investigating the reason why fertility rates are falling and why testosterone rates are falling. Maybe that's a problem for HHS, which I think is really important. I mean, a big part of that is that women are waiting until later in life to have children. But even younger women are seemingly having more troubles with fertility than they have in the past. I think investigating the reasons for that would be really helpful. And I would also say that the policy should be oriented towards not just having children, but also having children in a healthy family environment. So what I would propose instead of the $5,000 is actually giving a income tax credit, a massive income tax credit, or even eliminating the income tax for married couples with 3 or more children. To me, that seems like it's getting both the economic incentive out of the way for couples to have children, but also making sure that we're not having a case where maybe we're incentivizing women to become single mothers, or they think they're just going to get like a free payment out of having a kid, which doesn't really lead to, I think, healthy child rearing.
Well, I agree certainly that having a child in order to get a payment isn't a good idea. Now, I would be skeptical, I think perhaps more skeptical than you, that many women would make that choice, because I think across the board, regardless of the mother's financial standing, I think there's a pretty clear belief or conviction that $5,000, as you said, doesn't get you very far when it comes to the very large costs of raising a child. So I have less concern than you do in that respect. Tax credit versus giving people money, I'm kind of agnostic on that, to be honest. I do think one of the points that we disagree on, I think at the very start you talked about something to the effect of immigration or children born to immigrant families. I don't have any objection to that. I prefer the whole Jesse Jackson idea of America as a quilt that is woven from many different cloths. I don't see any great lack of social cohesion in that, in immigrant birth rates being higher than native-born birth rates, for example.
Up next, conservative female influencers are building a womanosphere. We'll get into that next.